All right, there we are. Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm excellent. Had my coffee, slept in a little bit more this morning. We're going to go run a 5K this afternoon, which I'm pretty excited about. It's down in the Smokies in a town called Townsend, so it should be super beautiful. I've also never run a 5K before, so we're going to pop that cherry today, which is going to be a lot
Nice.
of fun. My wife ran cross country pretty competitively throughout high school and then played soccer going into college. So she is a much more aerobic athlete than I am. And it's funny, like I've been doing like a pretty intensive running program for probably the last 10, 11 weeks in the lead into this. And I was joking with her yesterday. She hasn't run once, being totally honest.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be really frustrating me. You haven't run once like the last 3 months, and you're probably still going to smoke me this afternoon when we can go run this 5K.
That's awesome. She'll be able to just crush it on a whim.
Yeah, exactly. It was like when we first started dating, she would just like randomly just go roll up and run like halves and things like that with people and still like actually do quite well.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
oh, nope.
That's
I'm
so
like, we can go run 40s. You want to go run a 40?
right, right. Running is such its own animal. I've been working on running as well, and I'm like, my calves are super sore, and I'm just
Yeah.
all sorts of things.
Yeah. Like I've always been a sprinter. Like I've been able to sprint. Like if you want to go run 40s, 60s, 100s, like let's go all day long.
Yeah.
But just steady state long distance running has never been something I've done.
Yeah.
And so I am enjoying doing it. It's been a nice transition, a new challenge, a new project. We're going to talk about nutrition here in 1 second. I was just going to say, but the running thing in particular, what I've realized is that it really exacerbates any underlying movement biomechanics issues that are there, any patterning. There's just no way to hide it because the number of repetitions becomes so high. Just to think like the number of foot contacts you're getting in a less controlled environment. It's like, if there's an issue, we're going to find it if you start running 3, 4, 5+ miles a day and you're putting in 20+ miles a week. If there's an issue in the chain, we will find it quickly. It's going to be maybe at a knee, at a hip, at a back, someplace, but there's just no hiding. It does come out.
Definitely. Absolutely. That one big toe that's like really hurting.
Yeah,
There's always these little things. It's like, geez, what the heck?
we will find it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But no, so today we are going to be talking about some strategies or tactics, ways to be successful with your nutrition without having to count calories. I think this is a really important topic. I can say, and you can also say from our Rebel folks, that this is a question that comes up a lot. It's like, how can I be successful without having to weigh, track, and measure all this food and count all my calories all the time? And so I think we can probably bucket people into one or two camps here. And your need to count calories is really probably going to be dependent upon your goal and the level of the goal that you're trying to achieve or accomplish, right? But I think it is important for people to know that you can be really successful with nutrition without having to count, weigh, measure anything. And so today we're going to go over what that actually looks like, some ways that you can approach doing it. And then, again, more importantly, I want to make sure that we bucket folks and say, hey, if you're in this group and this is the type of goal you have, then you probably are going to have to count calories. There's really no way around it. But that bucket tends to be much smaller than the other bucket, right? Of people who, hey, if this is your goal, then, we can probably not count calories and you can probably still be really, really successful with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of it like this, where general health and wellness for many people can be a wide road. There's kind of a lot there. There's actually more flexibility than people realize, but consistency needed, and a kind of a mixture of things that can be a super nourishing, relatively flexible lifestyle. But then if we want a more specific goal achieved, like weight loss, you're moving on to a sidewalk, so you're not on that wide road. And then if you're someone with a training history and a nutrition history, and there's even more goals, you're moving towards a little bit of a tightrope. And it's just nice to think of that, because what often ends up happening with nutrition is I have so many people come through the door into my office and they say things like, I am such a healthy eater and I exercise and I'm not seeing results. And I think the first thing to be clear about is, well, what would the R word is so meaningful? What's the results you want to see? And sometimes I'll look at people's labs and I say, your cholesterol looks great. All your lipids are fabulous. You your DEXA scans look good. You don't have osteoporosis. Your blood glucose is fine. You are healthy. So what's the results that you're really looking for? And then that can help us understand the specificity needed and how flexible we want that to be. And then we can decide how willing we are to go from road to sidewalk to tightrope, or whichever one of those we need to go on.
I love that analogy. And I think it actually sums it up quite well, right? If you're in the group that is just generally looking to look good, move well, have fitness, be healthy, then yeah, you're on like a 4-lane highway. We got a lot of room to play with you. Mm-hmm. If you start getting into the crew that's like, oh, well, I want to lose a very specific amount of weight. I want to get to a specific body fat percentage. I want to gain a specific amount of weight, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're moving to our sidewalk, right? And then as the performance goals and the level of the goal that you're shooting for increases, now we're getting to a tightrope. Right? Like you can take one of our coaches, Ryan McCure. If you're trying to step on stage, like you're on potentially smaller than a tightrope at that point.
He's on floss.
Right. Yeah. You're just like walking around on floss. That's a great,
Poor Ryan.
a great way of putting it. That's a poor Ryan. But I think maybe what we can do is step our way down through that matrix a little bit. And let's start with the 4-lane highway folks, right? And so if we were going to categorize you, a 4-lane highway folk, like you're generally at your body weight goal. You're generally happy with body fat percentage and how you look. You are really the group that's focusing on maintenance.
Absolutely.
Is how I would say it. You're like the maintenance group, right? And so I think being successful with maintenance, you've got a lot of room to play with here, okay? And so if you want to think about some principles or ways to approach nutrition if you're in that group that doesn't involve counting calories, how do you like going about doing that and working on that with people?
Definitely. So that is the side of nutrition that I like to think of as food behavior. We can call that kind of lifestyle nutrition. I think of those clients as lifestyle clients. And that's where we look at really adding things in and just enriching life, really looking at, do I want to think about kind of longevity, general health and wellness, and fuel myself well for my activities? And then we can think about things like just making sure we're adding in vegetables at every meal, getting adequate amounts of protein. That's where some things like the Mediterranean diet can come into play. Continues to be found to be one of the healthiest diets in the world. We can think about making sure we're having healthy fats and cooking at home a little more and adding in vegetables and great sources of protein. And then just thinking about adding exercise into life, adding sleep into life. So it's not really a story of a lot of restriction. And there is wiggle room for a glass of wine and some flexible eating because there's not an underlying equation that we're super worried about because we're not trying to change body weight. So we're eating to be well. We're eating to hopefully have a lot of peace, a lot of social engagement. So there's not a lot of restriction there. So really nutrition of addition is how I think of that lifestyle goal, general health and wellness.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'll read off some of the things we have here in our kind of internal docs and communication for our clients, just with regards to here are the baseline nutrition success foundation pillars for folks, right? And this is where I think of the highway group. It's like if you just consistently are really good at doing all of these things, you're probably going to crush and do a great job. And this is where like you just start with the simplest solution possible. And if that solution doesn't work, then let's try something more complex. And if that doesn't work, then let's go up another notch, right? It makes sense for folks to start with the 4-lane highway approach. And if it works for you, you never have to do anything else. But if that doesn't work for you, now let's move to a sidewalk and get more specific. Now, like you can step function your way down depending on how the type of results that you're getting. Are you moving towards the goal that's in question? And so I think if we were going to just think about the check mark list of like, okay, if you're doing these things and it's not working for you, right, then we got to get more complex, start looking at counting calories. But as a base foundation, here's what I think good, air quotes, like good nutrition would look like for folks. It has nothing to do with counting calories. Like if you just do all these things, you'll probably do quite well. So one is to eat complete lean protein with every meal. 2, eat vegetables with every meal. People are going to be like, this is so dumb. It's so simple. You say that, but you don't do it. So don't tell me it's dumb and simple if you're not actually doing it.
Right. The doing.
The doing is the problem, right? So you have eat complete lean protein with every meal. Eat vegetables with every meal. And these go in order, so this is important. You put protein on the plate first. Nutrition foundation 4 is going to be this idea, and sometimes people get a little bit butthurt when I say this, which is the idea of earning your carbs. I put that out on Instagram, and I had some people lose their mind about how they have like this traumatic food history. I'm like, yeah, I'm not really talking to you. Like, if you have trauma and all this stuff, then like eating disorders, clearly this is not the approach for you. But for everyone else, this works quite well. The idea of earn your carbs is pretty much like, hey, have I done a really hard workout recently? If the answer to that question is yes, and you're sitting down to eat a meal, go ahead and give yourself rice and potatoes and these bigger, denser carbs that we've talked about. Or like if you have a hard workout coming up within the next 1 to 2 hours and you're eating a meal, go ahead and give yourself those carbs. The earn your carbs concept, I think, is one of the simplest, easiest things to do for people to just say, do I have a really hard workout coming up? Did I recently do a really hard workout? And so we're bookending the workout window with carbs because you're actually going to utilize and put those carbs to use if we eat it in that fashion, as opposed to eating a carb bomb at breakfast and then not doing anything and sitting on your butt, or eating it, at dinner after an entire day of not doing anything. We want to make sure that we're giving those carbs something to actually do. Okay. So we have eat complete lean protein with every meal, eat vegetables with every meal, earn your carbs, eat healthy fats daily with every meal. Right? And this is where you just want a blend of saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and polyunsaturated fat. Right? Things like animal fats, olive oil, fish oil would be examples in each of those categories. Next up, drink beverages with no calories. Stick to water, sparkling water. Put some lime or lemon in there. Have a black coffee. Sip on tea. Right? The next one for us would be eat whole food. Are you eating whole, nutritious food, or are you like having to put down protein bars and shakes and stuff all the time? The next one for us is going to be, let me see here. We'll stick to that because those are like the big ones that we hit. And the one that I'll also highlight here is just the idea of like a 90% is still an A. Last time I checked, everyone gets so like tied into this to where, if I'm not 100% perfect, then I'm a failure. If you're 90% executing, you're going to be quite successful over the course of time. But I just don't think that people have ever done the math to appreciate what being 90% compliant looks like. Okay, so let's just zoom back out here. And I'm going to say those again. Eat complete lean protein with every meal. Eat vegetables with every meal. Earn your carbs. Eat healthy fats daily with every meal. Try to split them up between the different types as best as you can. Drink beverages with 0 calories, and eat whole food. Pretty simple. It's a very simple list, right? But if we were going to think about what would 90% compliance actually look like for you to check each one of those boxes would make you compliant. If you eat, say, 5 times a day, so that'd be 35 meals a week. To be 90% compliant means that you're hitting all of those check boxes we just talked about for 31 to 32 of those 35 meals.
Right. Lots of wiggle room there.
Yeah, I'll push that back your way, see if you have anything to add to that. But this is where like nutrition can be really frustrating and hard for me because I want everyone to be so successful. And I look at that list and I think about myself and I'm like, personally for me, right, like executing that plan is just so simple. Like I don't weigh or measure anything anymore. I literally just told you the exact framework that is just running through my brain. It's just it's so ingrained now, I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But let me punt back to you for our highway folks, you don't have to weigh anything, but if you hit all these check boxes, you're probably going to be really successful. Did I miss anything really big or glaring, or do you feel like that's a pretty good checklist for folks?
That's definitely a very good checklist. And I think there's a lot in each of those. So and thankfully people can pop back to a few weeks ago and listen to the protein, the carb, and the fat lecture.
Yes, exactly.
They have questions about those because there's a lot of reasons for all those things. Why do I want like kind of maybe half my plate to be vegetables at every single meal? Why do I want that complete protein? How can I think of my carbs? If people don't love the word earn, they could always think of just meet your needs with carbs, all these different things. And with fats, the diversity of the fats is really important. I always say as a simple rule of thumb, use the right fat for the job. So don't put like fish oil on your toast. Just, if you want to spray the pan with coconut oil, do that. Put a little butter on your toast. When you're dressing your salad, use the olive oil. Just keep that diversity in there. That usually takes care of things. So there's a lot there. I think the interesting thing is the implementation. And to your point, what's simple is not easy, because we've known things like this about nutrition for a decent amount of time. But why the heck aren't we all doing it 90% of the time? That's always the interesting piece. And there's many reasons for that, but I think it can be so helpful for many, many people to focus on that nutrition of addition. Lower the stakes. This doesn't have to be a high stakes game you're playing. Focus on nutrition of addition, and you might find that really reduces the stress around food, softens kind of some of those food behaviors that someone might be struggling with. And that actually can typically enrich the diet and make the nutrition much easier to regulate.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then maybe the next best place to go from here, if people they don't want to weigh their food, but they want to maybe regulate that quantity and that intake a little bit more. Mm-hmm. How do you like the hand protocol that's been around for so long now with regards to regulating protein, fat, carbohydrate, and vegetable intake, just using the size of your hand for a quick back of the napkin calculation of, okay, I got about a palm size worth of protein here. Sweet. Cool. Like that. I'm going to be pretty close to my numbers. Mm-hmm. Do you like the hand protocol? Have you found that to be useful for folks? And if so, maybe we should unpack more of what that actually is, like the specifics of it.
Yeah, I do actually think the hand portions can be super helpful. So basically what that is looking at proteins measured as a heaping palm, vegetables are measured as fists, starches and other carbs are measured as cupped handfuls, and then fats are measured as thumbs. And the reason I do like that is with a lot of nutrition, I always think of precision versus accuracy, or repeatability versus accuracy. So hand measurements have a margin of error, which, by the way, numeric nutrition does as well, which I don't think people realize. When people are weighing and measuring and logging, there's a margin of error there as well. But with the hand portions, there's certainly a margin of error. But here's how I think of that for a lifestyle client who's on a wide road, or actually even this can be helpful even for many on the sidewalk. If I'm throwing darts at a target and I hit the bullseye once, but then the rest of my darts are all over the target, I only was accurate once. But if I am throwing darts and I'm like an inch to the right of center, but I can throw the dart at that same spot every single time, my repeatability becomes more meaningful than my accuracy. So with hand portions for many, many lifestyle clients, that's how they can start thinking about this, is half my plate vegetables, AKA like maybe 3 to 5 fists of veg. Then do I have at least a heaping palm of protein? Then I can add my cupped handful of starch before and after workouts. Do I have 2 thumbs of healthy fats kind of drizzled into this meal? If someone were to do that 90% of the time, they would have a beautiful diet.
They would crush. Like outside of weird external abnormalities, like you get exposed to nuclear radiation, you get hit by a bus, you have weird genetic stuff going on. Outside of all those other factors, you would do so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have laid out a pretty simple formula here for folks. If you don't want to count calories, but you still want to be successful with your nutrition, we just laid out for you the checklist to follow, and we just told you exactly how to manage the portions each time you sit down to eat. So those two things in combination should allow you to be really successful. Now maybe let's take that next step and just call out the folks who this strategy will probably not get you where you want to go. And for me, that comes down to people that have very specific body composition related goals, dependent upon training age also. So if you're someone who wants to, I have to lose 20 to 30 pounds, or I really want to get to this specific body fat percentage. Mm-hmm. If you have a very specific body fat percentage goal and you haven't listened to our How Lean is Too Lean podcast, please go do that, because I still talk to people that want to be sub 10% body fat. I'm like, do you really? But anyways, if you have a specific body composition goal with regards to I need to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds, I want to be this specific body fat percent, or I'm trying to gain 10 to 15 pounds, whatever it is. that starts getting us into sidewalk realm, where I do think that weighing and measuring becomes more of a requirement, especially for the body fat percentage and weight gain group in particular. I still think if you're in the weight loss group, kind of depending where you are in that journey, the things we've already talked about in this episode can probably get you quite far along if you couple that with enough movement and exercise. I think you can probably still be pretty successful with weight loss. When we're talking about body fat percentage and muscle gain in particular, now we move to a sidewalk and we have to, I think, begin looking at weighing, measuring, counting these calories and macros. I just don't see there being a way for you to be successful without doing that. Mm-hmm. Just because the specificity there becomes so much more important, right? Because from experience, I can tell you the weight gain group in particular, they're never eating enough food. If they don't weigh, track, and measure, they're always under eating. Mm-hmm. Always. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know if you feel like that categorization is useful. Would you agree kind of with those big three buckets?
Definitely. So for a lot of people at the beginning of a weight loss journey, even with something like 10, 20, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever that might be, the lifestyle nutrition is still going to get you very far, if not all the way. As we said, what's simple is not easy. So there's a lot there, but those behaviors can take care of a lot. And the way the hand portions too, also just to throw it out there for people, the way that's also effective is because that is also by default getting people to eat whole foods, which reduces processed foods in the diet and things that are really pleasureful and hedonic and hard to regulate. So there's just like a lot of nutrition changes there with that alone that for many people will take care of most, if not all of it. And then when we get down to a little bit more nitty gritty specifics, there's a few ways, exactly what you said, I feel about it, which is when we really want to gain weight, there's going to be a behavioral and perception hurdle to athletes who are never really eating enough. I'd have to give them like 30 cupped handfuls of rice per day, and they're going to be uncomfortable. So sometimes the grams are really helpful there. And then that also helps them get visuals on what does that look like? How does that feel? There also might need to be a smart kind of stepwise fashion of increasing that food slowly over time. A lot of like with the rebel mass gaining athletes, we don't all of a sudden dump their nutrition astronomically. We kind of let them adjust. We're going to make them sick otherwise. So the numerics can be helpful there. And when we've also lost a decent amount of body fat and we have a little more to go, there's going to be much more specificity required. So if someone really does want to see that body fat trim by like 3% more and they've done all the lifestyle nutrition and all that's covered, they're going to have to see how their macros are looking. So that's where the numeric nutrition becomes more specific because the physiology is requiring it.
Yeah, 100%. I think a quick note on that weight gain group, because I think that's really important and something that we haven't talked about. That should probably be its own podcast episode in the future, would be nutrition for weight gain. But I think the thing that you called out there is don't just increase your total calories by 40% overnight. Yeah. It's not going to go well. Your stomach and your GI is going to be very upset and unhappy with you, and it's going to be a really poopy experience, pun intended. And so the way I like to think about this, it's no different than training, right? Like we periodize training in a way to increase stress for you over time, to increase the total amount of load, to increase training volume. Like we don't just dump 50% more training volume on you overnight. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows how terrible that would be. Mm-hmm. But weight gain folks try to do that with their nutrition. But it's no different. It's like you have to gradually over time give your body the chance to adapt to increasing calories and being able to manage that. Because your GI system is just not going to function and be happy if you give it that big of a swing in calories that rapidly. Nobody wants that.
Definitely. And with the body weight really changes too, we want those to be slow. So not for nothing, but when we're, dumping calories on someone, where is that energy going to go if they've worked out twice? And then we give them thousands and thousands of calories. Where's that going to go? It's not just we're not going to build muscle overnight like that. Same thing with weight loss. I don't want people's weight like jumping off the cliff all of a sudden because we cut their calories so aggressively. So the body has a lag time. So people have got to work with it, work with the lag time. It's a good thing that you don't change overnight.
Yeah, that's very good. Oh, this was very useful. I hope that people find this useful. My concern is that people are going to get about halfway in and they're going to turn it off because they're going to be like, oh, it's too simple. Like, blah, 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 blah. I know. That's like the biggest thing in nutrition that I tell people, like, you got to drop the I know. Drop the I know and just focus on, am I actually doing the work? Am I executing this thing? Mm-hmm. Right? If I'm not executing this thing, then I should probably focus on that. Right? Do your behaviors match your goals? Mm-hmm. I think is a really important question for people in this realm. So just to recap and summarize, I think everything we hit here. We have a few different options for generally looking good, moving well, being fit, being healthy. And don't get me wrong, you can be like a savage and still be on a 4-lane highway. Mm-hmm. Right? Like we have plenty of people in our group that deadlift 500 plus 600 pounds. Like they are complete freaks. Mm-hmm. And they live on a 4-lane highway when it comes to their nutrition. Mm-hmm. Right? So please don't think that the 4-lane highway means you have to be a total beginner. That's not the case whatsoever here. Like I live on the 4-lane highway and have for quite some time. Mm-hmm. So we have our 4-lane highway, folks. And then in particular, if you have a specific body fat percentage goal or you're trying to gain weight, now we're really moving you to the sidewalk. Okay? If you're in the weight loss bucket and the prescription that we gave you for what the lifestyle would look like, the combination of, eat lean protein at every meal, eat veggies, the things we talked about earlier, in coordination with using the hand measurements, that can get you really far in your weight loss journey. If that stops working, now you also move to the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I hope that's useful for folks. I would really encourage you to actually sit down and write down the checklist I gave you, and I'll say it one more time, just so that everybody has it. Because it's not rocket science. Like I'm not trying to build a rocket to go to Mars to start a colony. Like this is pretty basic stuff. Eat complete lean protein with every meal. Eat vegetables with every meal. Earn your carbs, or I like the way you phrase it better, which was meet your needs with your carbs. For the people that get offended. Eat healthy fats daily with every meal and a good variety of them. I think the tip you gave was like, use the fat where it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not put fish oil on toast. Sounds like an awful idea.
Ugh, yeah.
Drink beverages with 0 calories and eat whole food and be 90% compliant. Mm-hmm. And for the hand, it's a palm size is about a serving of protein. Mm-hmm. I think you generally do kind of like the one for females and then you double it for men, right? So palm is equivalent for protein, thumbs for fats, cupped handfuls for our starchy, denser carbs, fists for vegetables.
Yep.
That's kind of the pretty simple 4-lane highway approach that a lot of people can be successful with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, so the only thing I would add to that, and maybe this would be its own episode, we always get ideas about things to talk more about as we talk, yes. But when people think about that lifestyle nutrition, if they're thinking, okay, Erin and James, I hear you, I'm supposed to eat vegetables and protein, and that'll take care of everything. But I would say what we're also highlighting there is that would be consistent, nutritious food behavior. But for a lot of people, that also begs the question of, well, how does it get onto my plate? Because the interesting thing with nutrition is we're changing the food, so we're changing the molecules, but I have to get a brain to put those molecules into someone's mouth. So the thing I would think about there too is, well, what are my hurdles? Why isn't that happening? What's going on weekends? How am I cooking? How do I shop? Do I eat slowly? Do I eat with the TV on? There's a lot of food behavior there. So even though it sounds like what we're saying is simple, there's an entire map leading up to every single meal and every calorie that we consume that led us to that moment. So if you think of these food behaviors as the destination on the map, backtrack your steps and see what's coming before. How can I get that lean protein? Who's going to cook these vegetables? So this also is a big lifestyle change, but that's why it's lifestyle nutrition. So even though it sounds simple, I definitely would urge people to get into the nitty gritty of how you can make that happen in your life. So the key will be the execution.
Totally. Everything comes down to execution and action. I will say that Nutrition Foundation 9 for us and our internal docs for our clients is plan ahead, like you just mentioned, because you got to have a plan. But okay, that was beautiful. I hope that everyone listening found that incredibly useful and helpful. If you have any questions on this, if you need help with this, just pop on over to Instagram, drop us a DM. You can ping us an email. We would love to help any way we can in this realm. Erin, thank you so much. Happy Friday. Hope that you have a very beautiful and fun weekend ahead, as well as everyone listening. Hope that you guys have a beautiful rest of your Friday and a fantastic weekend. But you'll be listening to this on a Sunday or Monday, so that won't make as much sense to you.
Thank you. Happy Friday.